Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Mecha Rewatch. I'm Cossak and Lawn, and with me, as always, is Lawn Dragon.
Hi.
And it's finally come to this. We're had no recourse. We're finally doing Neon Genesis Evangelion.
It's time. The meme is a lot. We have a rewatch podcast about Evangelion. We're getting into it.
Yeah.
I'm excited, but not for this show.
No. There are scenes in this show that I'm excited to talk about because there are some rad scenes.
These first two episodes are great.
Yeah.
Nothing is wrong yet.
Yeah.
It's all okay.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed them quite thoroughly, actually.
Yeah, I mean,
League's better than Gundam Wing.
Yeah.
Straight up. I'm putting table stakes, money down. These two episodes better than the entirety of Gundam Wing.
to be fair, I actually think that most mecha fans would agree with you. The only people who would disagree are people who
really like Gundam Wing.
Really like Gundam Wing.
And those people do exist. And you know what? I'll fight them in the parking lot.
Yeah, I hate to tell you this. Listen closely.
Go ahead, dislike the video. That's engagement.
Yeah, Gundam Wing is not good.
It's really not.
It's really bad.
It's really, really not.
And not bad enough to be bad in a good way.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. Because this is gonna get bad in a oh my god, that's amazingly bad.
Yeah.
Gundam Wing never did. It was just lame.
There's a reason why Evangelion is heralded as a classic, not just of mecha anime, but it's like a cult classic.
But of anime, right?
Yeah.
The fact is, right, as much as it's oh my god, we're all gonna lose our minds as we try to discuss Evangelion, this is one of the most recognizable anime ever.
This is one of the most memed anime.
Certainly in terms of memes, but even outside of memes.
I was just using it as an example of how much of a cultural phenomenon this anime is.
Right, Evangelion is one of the pillars of anime. Right, when people, especially chances are if you ask someone to think about anime who doesn't watch anime, probably gonna think of Evangelion.
So this is done.
They're going to think of a scene from Evangelion or a character from Evangelion because that's what they're going to associate with anime as an aesthetic.
Yeah. Part of that is because Studio Gainax, which is the studio that animates this and is responsible for this, and who we have to hold to blame.
Yeah, who we have to take to The Hague for this.
The creator we also have to take to The Hague.
It's true.
But to be fair, the reason he made it in the first place was as a way of getting over his own depression.
Good for him.
He was severely almost suicidally depressed, if I recall, during this. He had a lot of really bad shit happen, which is what part of
comes through in the show.
Yeah, it comes through in the show. That's part of why because there's the remake movies that have been coming out over the span of the last few years, the last decade about.
Yeah.
And that is him. Literally, he has stated that those movies are his attempt to come at the same concept of a show from a much healthier mental perspective.
Yeah.
I haven't watched all of them yet, so I can't say how much the shows reflect that.
Yeah.
I've watched the first two.
But at the same time, good for him working through his mental issues and stuff. But also, you don't have to release that to millions of people. But, just saying.
But, it was successful.
Functionally speaking, the show Evangelion is one man trauma dumping on all of us.
That's what it boils down to.
But we are all his therapist.
You start episode 1, and you are immediately going to recognize the theme song because it has been memed to death.
Not as much as you're going to recognize the outro song.
Cruel Angel's Thesis. I don't know. I think that depends on the meme communities you run in, because I have heard way more meme references to Cruel Angel's Thesis than I have for Fly Me to the Moon.
Okay, but Fly Me to the Moon's a real song.
That's true.
Fly Me to the Moon's a song that you could play for non-anime people, and they'd go, "Oh yeah, that's that song."
Mm-hmm. No issue. I agree with you. It's probably the more recognizable of the two.
Yeah.
I just don't know if it's the more memed of the two.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's the more referenced of the two. It shows up in I swear, any long-running abridged series, any abridged series that's gone more than 20 episodes, which is not a lot, but there's a few, have made a Fly Me to the Moon reference. Because Little Karibo's done at least a few in Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged. One Piece, or rather None Piece, which is the one big one. That one only ran for 9 episodes and I think had a Fly Me to the Moon reference. DBZ Abridged had a couple. Hellsing Ultimate Abridged had one.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the same people, though. That was kind of to be expected.
Like...
And I think Naruto, the Abridged series, had one.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean... And it's because it's such a recognizable song that has both a mainstream and anime lineage. You can kind of nail both audiences with that.
If I want to make a joke about like anime outro music in particular, it's gonna be a Fly Me to the Moon joke.
Yeah, because
that's like
there are no outros that are nearly as well known as Fly Me to the Moon.
But also specifically, like the fact that it's a real song is part of the meme.
Yeah.
Right? The fact that it's just this random, perfectly normal song is like is the joke.
Well, because that's not done a lot in anime in general.
No, it's not.
And even when it is done, it's not done with as widely recognizable of a song as Fly Me to the Moon is.
Correct.
Because Fly Me to the Moon had, even before this, I think, had English covers.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, was like, I don't know if it made top 40s, but it was a recognizable song overseas as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, might have, I don't even know. Did it originate as a Western song?
I am uncertain. I think so. I think it's just...
But Cruel Angel's Thesis you will know as well, mainly because of all the memes it's been used in. And also, if you're really into song mashups, if you're into the song mashup scene on YouTube, Cruel Angel's Thesis has been mashed up with almost every genre.
Yeah, it's originally by Frank Sinatra, man.
Oh, then I'm a moron. I mean, I don't listen to a lot of Frank Sinatra.
No, I don't either. But yeah, no, it's
So this is a cover. That is arguably more recognizable than Frank Sinatra's version.
To anime fans, definitely. To anime mainstream, maybe. This is a good cover. Like, fine.
So anyway, meme song ends, and we open with you hear the sounds of helicopters. They're flying over this like flooded, ruined city,
which is a little weird.
Yeah, which is already a little weird. Then it cuts to a shot of dozens of tanks lined up.
They're on this like winding mountain road, like lined up, facing out towards the water. It's
like notably their hulls are facing down the road.
Yeah, because they've just driven down the road and then just turned their turret sideways.
In a long firing line, and you're like,
what is going on? Well, because you're hearing like announcements and stuff.
Yeah.
Something is attacking them from the sea. It's Godzilla, right? Like this scene is the opening of any like kaiju movie, and it's intentionally so. We get Godzilla's coming.
So we get an evacuation notice, and we get a brief shot of someone whose identity has yet to be revealed, with a picture and mentioning that the boy in the picture's name is Shinji.
And that they've lost him.
Yeah, and that they've lost him. Because this character has a poor sense of direction.
It's a poor sense of a lot of things, but okay.
Well, that's because she's sloshed 90% of the time.
Fair.
Anyway, then something called an angel appears, and they're like, because you see this guy who's got mirrored glasses of some kind.
Yep.
Who just says the angels have returned.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, all these...
This is also where they say it's been 15 years.
Yeah, and then, because the guy behind him, his like second in command says like, so it's finally appeared.
Yeah.
Yes, the angels have returned.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, while they're talking, in the background, you've got a bunch of UN officials that are like they're like organizing, they're like, vector, blah, 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 unit to blah, blah, blah. Prepare the firing line and all that stuff. And then we actually see the creature.
Yep.
Which walks onto screen, and as it's surrounded by these hovering VTOLs.
Which look real cool.
Yeah, they're like this weird, like... They're like a bastard love child.
They're like jet ospreys?
Yeah, they're like a bastard love child of a Harrier and an Osprey.
Yeah, they're
really cool looking.
I struggle to say they wouldn't work. I guess theoretically, their fuel consumption would be atrocious.
Oh, yeah.
All right, let me tell you a little thing about a jet engine. They work better when they go fast.
Mm-hmm. They're not great for stationary hovering.
And then we have even more advanced versions like ramjets and scramjets that work even better the faster they go. But even a normal jet engine works better when it's going fast. They suck on the ground.
There's a reason why Harriers, which are probably the most well-known VTOL craft,
other than a normal helicopter, but continue.
Well, okay, most well-known VTOL jet craft.
Yes, correct.
They don't hover like a helicopter does, stationary over a target.
Correct.
Because they only hover when they're landing in like areas.
Also, they don't tilt the entire jet.
No,
and that's important. They just have little nozzles.
Yeah.
And also they eat fuel while they do it.
Yeah. Well, and there's a reason why the F-35, which has 3 different variations, only one of them is a VTOL craft, and that one's the carrier-based one.
Yeah.
Because that's where it's more useful to have.
And also it looks stupid.
Yeah. Also it looks dumb.
Dumb tilt
nozzle down thing. There's a reason why there aren't more VTOL jet aircraft.
Right, because it's just not practical. No. And you don't need it most of the time. And yeah, replacing the big rotors with like jet engines looks really cool, but yeah, I mean, no. Utterly impractical.
But man, their weapons packages are sweet.
Oh yeah, they've got these sick ass rocket pods.
And one of them even has a belly-mounted cruise missile launcher.
Yeah, sure, gigantic cruise missile. Freaking, it's like an ICBM, but you don't do the ballistic missile part. You just fire it straight. Even Scuds take a ballistic arc.
Yeah, but but like it's like a direct fire Scud.
Yeah, essentially.
It's a Scud-sized direct fire missile.
Big cruise missile, really huge cruise missile.
Yeah.
Larger than anyone would ever bother to build, right?
Right.
Doesn't work, by the way. None of these weapons work. None of them are effective.
Yeah.
The Angel doesn't care, much like Godzilla.
Yeah. While all this is going on, notably Gendo is doing the pose, for those of you who know.
Oh yeah, he's Gendo posing.
He has a very specific pose that has also been memed a lot. We will be mentioning the many memes.
Yeah, again, there's a reason this is like one of the most recognizable animes, because every scene a meme. Like
pretty close so far at least.
Yeah, you know. Every frame of painting? No. Every scene a meme.
I mean, not to the level that, like, say, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is.
I don't know about that. JoJo's gets memed a lot, but it has a lot more content to it that isn't.
You'd be shocked at how much of that content is utilized in those memes, though. Also, well, that to be fair, it depends on if you take it as JoJo as a whole or if you take it in each part.
Sure.
Because there are certain parts, like Stardust Crusaders Part 3 is the most memed of all time. It's
yes.
All the Dio memes come from.
Yeah, if you're going to compare to just Stardust Crusaders Part 3, then sure. Yes,
the meme density is slightly higher.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you compare it as a whole, yeah, the meme density gets lower.
This is just, again, it's just like every new scene, you're like, oh, that's that meme.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I've seen that. I've seen that image in a meme before.
Yep.
You
could replace the subtitles in this show with like top text, bottom text, and just do it as a series of memes.
Yeah. Well, especially because one of the things they had to do for the show, because Gainax did not have much of a budget for this show.
Yeah.
And so...
Get to that part eventually.
Yeah. Well, so what they did for a lot of the show up until the end, which we will get to eventually, is that they skimped on the animation for the non-combat scenes for the most part.
Correct.
There are some really well animated elements, but there is also a lot of like character interaction. Usually when there's not a lot of like extra stuff going on in the scene.
Yeah.
For example, like lip flaps is a really good example.
They specifically skip on the animation because notably they don't skip on the backgrounds. One of the things that I like in these episodes is that these episodes for the most part are pretty normal.
Mm-hmm.
We're just watching a mecha show. Mm-hmm. There's some stuff. It does get progressively weirder because it's Evangelion and it's gonna get weird. But the descent into madness starts with the backgrounds.
Yeah.
Right? Because people are having perfectly normal conversations that seem like they could be out of any mecha anime ever, or at least any kaiju anime ever, right? Sure. Not necessarily specifically mecha, but kaiju anime. But they are doing it to backdrops that just get strange.
Well, and background
and they
elements.
no commentary on, because everyone who's in the scene is in like a weird facility that they work in and have gone to every day. They don't comment on the fact that in the back of one of these scenes there's a giant hand going past them on the escalator. They don't care.
Or that there's like a brief shot of like a, you know, one of the coolant tanks that.
Or they have an entire like weird upside down city thing with a Bass Pro Shop.
Well, they have the upside down city thing, and then they have the Bass Pro Shop below that.
Yes, correct.
And it looks like the Bass Pro Shop pyramid. Very
it
similar.
really does.
Like to the point where I wonder, I don't know if the Bass Pro Shop pyramid was made by
I don't
this
think
point,
it was.
but it makes me wonder if the designer of the Bass Pro Shop pyramid like
was an Evangelion fan.
Yeah, and was like, oh, I've got the best idea for a fucking Bass Pro Shop.
Yeah, I mean, God, I love the Bass Pro Shop pyramid. I love that every pyramid in anything now is a Bass Pro Shop. Because it should be. That's correct.
It also is one of those things where, you know, I love to point to the Bass Pro Shop pyramid when people say we don't know how to make pyramids anymore.
Right. Well, look, the thing about pyramids is they are actually just the easiest shape.
Yeah, well, and
the reason that the surviving monuments of ancient cultures are pyramids is because pyramids don't fall down. They are just piles of rocks.
They're arranged in one of the hardest shapes to knock over.
Right. Well, and also one of the shapes just doesn't fall over on its own due to like wear.
Yeah,
right.
Like it doesn't lose structural integrity.
It is already collapsed, functionally speaking. Yeah. It is collapsed. It's a pile.
Yeah, it's a pile that has already collapsed as far as it will collapse.
When people talk about like the angles on pyramids, like, oh wow, they all have this like perfect 45-degree angle. Yeah, because it's the angle that a pile settles into. Like, no kidding.
Like, and actually though, if you like get a pile of sand, or dirt,
correct,
and get it in your hands, and then let it trickle out of the bottom of your hand,
you will receive a pyramid. Well, it'll be a round pyramid. It'll be a pyramid.
Well, and even in like there's like because glaciation causes the tops of mountains to look like pyramids.
Absolutely.
I mean,
they look like mountains.
Yeah, that's the other thing is you look at mountains and they loosely have a 45-degree angle.
Right. Anyway, I now choose to believe that Gendo Ikari's pyramid here is naturally formed.
Yeah,
by a glacier.
Yeah.
And just glaciers moved out of this part of Japan ages ago and left behind a Bass Pro Shop.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how glaciers
Well, I mean, the Bass Pro Shop was built by like the ancient civilization that they...
The ancient pros who needed to shop for bass.
Yes.
I've never been into a Bass Pro Shop. I
have.
They sell like sporting goods as far as I understand?
Yeah. Well, because they're also, I don't know if they are or not, but I'm pretty sure they're owned by the same company that owns Cabela's.
Okay. See, anytime I would have potentially gone to a Bass Pro Shop, I go to an REI instead.
Well, because Bass Pro Shop and Cabela's were really popular up in the area that I lived in.
Sure.
Which it makes sense. That was like northern lower peninsula of Michigan's a really big hunting area, and those type of shops,
makes sense.
In particular, cater more towards the hunting and fishing crowd.
Right. Yeah.
Fishing is a huge thing in Michigan because we have the Great Lakes.
Well, fishing was massive where I lived on account of I lived on the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah, but like Bass Pro Shop is more for freshwater fishing than it is for
bass.
Yeah,
hence the bass.
Which is why it's more popular in Michigan, where all of the fishing is freshwater.
Yeah,
because it's all rivers and lakes.
Anyway, this is now Bass Pro Shop rewatch. Just gonna start reviewing Bass Pro Shops, starting with the Big Pyramid one.
We haven't gone there yet, but we're gonna take a virtual tour of it. And
we're not even gonna physically go. We're just gonna take a virtual tour.
Well, we don't look. I don't have it in the budget to physically go.
We have a budget?
No.
Yeah, well,
that's why.
That's why it's not in the budget.
Right.
Fact.
So anyway, so the background thing, we haven't quite gotten to that point.
No, we haven't gotten to that point yet, but it's sort of starting.
The VTOLs, they open up on the Angel, and then the Angel
it starts with the sunken buildings.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and then the Angel starts wrecking the VTOLs.
Sure does.
And notably, Shinji and Misato Katsuragi, who has introduced herself by that point, have met. She's picked him up in her like...
Well, it almost steps on him, and she her car shields him from the debris.
Yeah, and then they go.
And she has the world's most durable Toyota. Aw.
It's not even a Toyota. It looks like a Lancer.
It does look like a Lancer. It might be a Lancer. She's in
it looks like it looks like the Lancer that what's his face's character from the Fast and the Furious like gets from Impound on the first movie.
Oh, sure.
To customize into a street racing car.
Yeah, sure. But this car is like incredibly durable. At one point, it gets flipped. They flip it back over, like it's a freaking warthog in Halo.
Yeah,
like,
it gets flipped. And having been in a car that's been flipped,
you're not typically driving a car that's been
no, because usually what happens at that point is your transmission has crashed into the roof.
Oh, your bits fall out. It's not meant to take stress on the side.
Yeah,
like,
your engine is like starting to fall out. The frame is bent.
Yeah, all your like hoses and stuff have torn because again, like your engine sits on a housing that is not meant to take stress sideways, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you turn a car on its side and the engine just kind of like falls to the side and takes everything with it.
It's also not meant to fall to the top either.
Well, her car's not all the way over though. It's just on the side.
Right, yeah, it did get flipped on its side. But like I was in a car that flipped all the way over. And
all the way over is even worse.
Yeah,
because absolutely, your car doesn't hold the engine down, right? It's not worried about it floating away.
Right. Yeah, this is.
In fact, quite the opposite. It's designed such that you can lift these things out for repairs.
Yeah, this isn't a Willys Jeep.
No,
because or an M151.
Or one of those Coast Guard boats that's designed to flip over.
Yeah,
right?
Because like the M151 Jeep. Which was kind of the predecessor to the modern Humvee.
Yeah.
That Jeep was notorious for flipping because of the way its suspension worked. Mm-hmm. And literally, I remember listening to like a podcast where a guy was talking about getting trained on those.
Yeah.
And they would literally, how they would train people on them is because it gave no warning before it would flip. So how they would train them is, at one point in the training, you'd get like a NASCAR crash harness on one of those M151s and a helmet, and you would do donuts essentially in tighter and tighter turning circles until it flipped itself.
Yeah.
And then it'd be like, see, there's no warning.
Right. That's when it flips. You now know what you can do before it flips.
Yeah, because otherwise you wouldn't know. Because unlike most vehicles where the suspension will kind of let you know when the vehicle's about to flip because you feel
like you're about to flip.
It doesn't give you that warning. You don't feel the flip coming before it just suddenly decides to then they would have as they were getting the next guy ready in like the next Jeep, they would have the rest of them push over that Jeep and flip it back over and it would be fine to go again.
Right.
But most cars aren't built like that.
Yeah, commercial cars are not built this way. Like military vehicles, sure. But
and she even complains about how much it's going to cost her because she has like...
They have like taped the body back together
and are
like
running
it's a Cybertruck.
Well, and they're running it off of like a bunch of connected lithium-ion batteries,
which is also... Are they lithium? They didn't look lithium-ion.
Okay, they're connected car batteries.
Yeah, they looked like nickel acid.
Yeah, they kind of looked like, maybe just because of the way they were in a bank, it kind of made me think that for a second.
Oh, sure.
Because that's how lithium-ion batteries usually are on larger things that are powered by them. They're in a bank like that, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, it's a hell of a car, technically speaking.
Yeah. But the Angel is just kicking the shit.
Yeah, it's just wrecking the military. The whole... notably, the thing that flips the car is they nuke it.
It steps on a nuclear landmine.
Yes. Which is fun. I mean, there's a lot of things to discuss there about why they have a nuclear landmine.
Well, and they don't state that it's nuclear, but the blast
is nuclear.
So also Shinji and Misato are now on a they're
irradiated. They're
heavily irradiated.
1%. Maybe the wind was blowing the other way.
Now, and notably, Katsuragi might not be blind because she had sunglasses on, but Shinji almost certainly should be blind.
Well, it's weird because they look away from the initial flash, but then immediately look at it afterwards.
Yeah, and the flash is still
blind
going.
To you. Yeah.
And then the blast wave hits them and knocks them the fuck over.
Yeah, flips the car, which again, flip it back out.
Sends both of them tumbling.
Yep.
Which if you're that close to a nuclear explosion, you're basically dead.
Well, first of all, her car shouldn't have any windows anymore.
Right? Yeah, her car shouldn't have any windows. They actually should be just dead because the blast wave...
no, I believe that there is a distance at which the blast wave would flip a car, but not kill you.
That's not what will kill them. It's the heat wave that comes with the blast wave that would cook them alive.
Oh, yeah, you're far enough away. Remember that the blast radiuses of nuclear weapons are surprisingly disappointing. Like,
well, yeah, but like if you are close enough for the blast wave to knock you over.
No.
Yeah.
No. The blast wave is gonna blow out. All right, like we've had actually an example of a massive blast recently, the Beirut explosion, which blew out windows the other side of the city. People were fine.
Yeah, but these people got knocked over by the blast.
But I'm saying there's a point in a blast at which, yeah, you're well outside being cooked by the heat, but yeah, the pressure wave keeps going.
I guess.
And could easily like flip.
You would know more about this than me.
Again, it totally depends on the weapon that they used, like how strong it actually was. Right. Because the other thing is, remember, you can adjust your explosive for like, I want more heat and light, more pressure wave. Yeah. Right.
That's true. There are lots of we have
the best example is a fuel air bomb, right? Which is tons of pressure wave, not very much heat and light ultimately.
Yeah.
It's not particularly incendiary. It just, spicy marinara. Everybody in like a large radius. A nuke is actually kind of the opposite of that.
Yeah.
Lots of heat and light, big exothermic reaction, atomic. The blast wave is impressive initially, but tapers off pretty quick.
Yeah, that's true. Thermobarics are more blast wave, less.
Yeah. Less... So who knows what they detonated here?
Yeah. Judging by the heat and light or at least the light that is produced.
What also makes this big old crater? Like, it seems nuclear. Here's the other thing, right? In terms of survivability, if it was a nuclear landmine, one of the things with nuclear landmine is a lot of the blast is absorbed by the land.
That's true, and we see that in the sense that the blast has gone upward.
Yes.
It is a.
That is the effect you will get from like a underground nuke,
because the ground naturally creates like a shape for the charge.
Right.
It's part of why
the ground contains nukes remarkably well. It's why if you want to kill people, you detonate them actually in the air. Above the target.
What you actually want is, like, if you're gonna have a nuclear landmine, what you really want is a nuclear bouncing Betty that
sure.
Like.
Well, I always assume that the idea behind a nuclear landmine is actually that you want to be more specific.
Right.
That you don't want this massive
because
blast.
And that's why with that's true for even regular landmines though.
Oh yeah.
If you want a more effective landmine, you want at least for hitting multiple targets at once. Because like anti-tank mines, you bury those anyway because they're creating a shaped charge.
Well, you do a couple of... You want a shaped charge that goes up into the tank. You also don't want it to detonate for something that isn't a tank. Right.
Correct.
So you make it very unsensitive to pressure.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah, this thing presumably was totally safe to all of the civilians because it only detonates when giant kaiju step on it.
Like a multi-ton kaiju.
Yeah.
Like
multi-ton kaiju mine.
It's probably safe for the tanks to drive over.
Yeah, tanks been driving over it all the time. What is it, like a 50-ton tank? That's fine. Yeah. I only detonate for 2,000-ton kaijus.
Yeah. Right. Well, and because it's calibrated for a kaiju step, which the actual action of stepping itself exerts more pressure.
Right. Because if we assume that an angel weighs, I don't know, tens of thousands of tons, we don't get any information about how much they weigh.
Certainly big enough to.
Right. Then yeah. I mean, it's putting all that pressure on 2 feet. Like
what? And I'm gonna slightly spoil things, but what would have been really funny is if they had all this prepared for like this walking kaiju, and then one of the angels that doesn't walk,
one of the flying ones comes along and just doesn't detonate the landmine.
They're like,
that's an interesting question. Does a flying kaiju still exert its weight upon the ground like a hovercraft does? Right?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it depends on how it flies.
It's one of the fun thing about But hovercrafts, they don't avoid mines.
Right, but these things also just already violate the laws of physics in multiple
That's true. I mean, maybe it weighs nothing. Who knows?
I mean, that one certainly weighed something because it detonated the mine.
Maybe it's not a weight mine, right?
That's true. It did seem to, because they did say detonate the blah 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 mine.
Right. Maybe they just push the button. Get these all over remote detonated.
I mean, yeah.
Wait for it to walk over one.
Yeah. That was one of the methods of detonating nuclear mines when we
sure.
Because
when we okay, clearly the way that this detonated is the chicken died at exactly the right moment.
the AT field from
the AT field killed the chicken and the mine detonated. That's how I would make an angel mine.
Yeah, that's how an anti-angel mine should work.
Yeah. You keep a chicken in the mine. When the chicken dies to the AT field, the mine goes off.
And all the British people who know about this are going to be like, "You're never going to let us live this down, are you?"
No. Not.
You made a chicken-triggered nuclear landmine. You will have to.
The actual one wasn't even really a landmine. It was just a fuck you after you take over bomb.
Yeah, it was an area denial weapon. Yeah.
Yeah. It was just the Russians come in and take West Germany, and then like 14 days later, because nobody has fed the chickens, every city explodes.
Yeah. And we will never let you forget that you made that.
Did they actually make it? They designed it. I don't know that one was ever built.
I think they maybe built one, but never they got to
certainly one was never deployed in the field.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it wasn't the Davy Crockett.
Yeah.
Look, that's the one America will never live down.
No. Nor should they. It's an amazing weapon system. What are you talking about?
Just fire this man-portable nuke over yonder, and then now remember, the doctrinal way to fire this is to fire it over a hill.
Yeah.
In the general vicinity, because it's a nuke. It'll hit as long as you get within like a mile.
Yeah, you need a mountain to protect yourself from the blast.
A hill.
Yeah.
You need a sufficiently sized hill so that you can duck down behind said hill and hope that the blast wave doesn't hit you.
Correct. You
hope that you picked a steep enough grade hill. That the blast wave just goes over top of you and you're good. You're peachy.
I mean, I think the other real way to use it was just you're already in a bunker. Like, fire it from a bunker.
Well, no, because it had backblast.
I know, but you... Yeah, and?
Well, you're not supposed to fire things with backblast from an enclosed space, and that one had quite a bit of backblast.
Right, but I guarantee you, I can build a bunker with a fucking the same way I fire an ICBM or anything else, right? Like you can build a bunker that fires a thing with backblast.
Yeah, but I don't think they had those bunkers is the problem. And notably,
fine. Go outside the bunker, fire the mortar, and then get inside.
Well, it wasn't a mortar; it was a recoilless rifle. It was literally a bazooka.
Sure.
That is what they literally used the recoilless rifle mounting on their Jeeps to mount the Davy Crockett.
Right, but I'm pretty sure it was supposed to function as a mortar. You're supposed to fire it in an arc.
You are supposed to fire it in an arc, but not a steep enough arc to like. It's like a very shallow arc mortar.
Sure, because you're trying to get distance, but like that's still a mortar.
Yeah,
that's what a mortar is.
I guess. But it's built on a recoilless rifle housing.
I think most mortars are.
Because
that's all a mortar is a tube. Like, technically speaking.
Yeah, but this one had, like... It doesn't really matter. But, I don't know.
Anyway, it's back to... They try to nuke the Angel, it doesn't work, because AT field beat everything. We don't... We'll find out at any point during these two episodes what AT stands for.
They use the term a lot, but we don't know what AT means.
Nope.
We just know it's the super magic field that lets you ignore nukes.
Yep. AT. We're not going to talk about it either.
No, not until...
We'll bring it up when the show does.
Yeah. Anyway, so... Katsuragi's car got flipped, and then notably, then the Angel they think they won. The UN guys
they're like, we got it,
and they're like, ladies and gentlemen, we got them.
Specifically a line in here about like not wanting to let Ikari,
like Gendo Ikari,
do his thing.
Yeah, they're like, I guess we won't need your help after all, Gendo.
Yeah.
Or no, I guess you won't have your chance after all.
Yeah. Which so we get a little bit of this. There's this little bit of friction of like, whatever this guy does, we don't want to let him. We prefer to beat this thing
and
our
we
way.
even get and notably Gendo and his lieutenant know that thing's not dead
it's
yet.
not dead.
Fairly certain of that fact.
Well, because again, they know what an AT field does, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, obviously, it's not
Because
dead.
they built one.
It is interesting. Like, so I guess the implication is that previous angels didn't all have AT fields.
Well, there's only one previous angel.
Well, yeah, one it presumably.
And it detonated itself, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, but also just, I don't know. It's weird that the military thinks that this will work, right? That any of this will work.
Well,
that they even bothered.
Yeah, it seems like Nerve, the organization that Gendo is a part of and head of, has not shared any of the details of angels with the military at all.
Well, they could share a little bit because the military vaguely knows what it is.
Well, they know...
But they don't know how it works.
Well,
right. What's going to happen.
Right. They don't know anything important about it.
Yeah.
They just know that the threat...
Oh, it's big kaiju.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all they know is that it's big kaiju.
Right.
And so they bring all their biggest stuff.
Let me go get my anti-kaiju gun.
Yeah, and then the anti-kaiju gun doesn't work. Because the anti-kaiju gun is deflected by the kaiju's anti-kaiju field. Yeah. Look.
God, angels really are just like children on a playground. Like, I have a kills everything gun. Well, I have a blocks kills everything gun shield.
And also have a kills everything even harder gun.
Yeah. Anyway.
As we will see.
But yeah, doesn't work. It emerges from the blast totally unscathed.
Yeah.
Obviously.
And then begins taking out the cameras, at which point Gendo's lieutenant goes, it can alter its parameters.
Yeah, and they're learning.
Well, Gendo says they're learning, but yeah. That happens. Shinji arrives at Nerve around this time, and then we get
the car escalator.
So notably, this is where we need to talk about the aesthetics of the show.
Yeah.
Because the aesthetics of the show, there are multiple aesthetics being mashed together here.
Yeah, and I like some of them and don't like others.
Yeah, so the biblical aesthetics of the show can work. There are moments where they work.
There's a lot of biblical symbolism in this show, which people tend to take as too much of an important element of the show.
Yeah.
Right? There's gonna be a lot of crosses and stuff. Show's really not about that. It's kind of a red herring, actually.
Yeah, hence why I say it has more of a biblical aesthetic.
Yes.
Than it does then it has biblical symbolism, because symbolism implies that these things represent
exactly. Like we will later there will be a giant cross. It doesn't mean anything. It's not like symbolizing something. It's just aesthetically a giant cross. There's really not
they call them angels, but like
that doesn't really do any. I mean, I guess they kind of look like biblical angels.
Biblically.
But again, it's an aesthetic thing. It's not a like.
Right.
They do not like herald the word of God or anything.
Yeah.
Right?
None of them say, "Do not be afraid."
You should be very afraid.
Yeah.
But anyway, be absolutely afraid. In fact. But yeah, it just I don't know. People read a lot into, this is a metaphor for the Bible. No, it really isn't.
At least not so, definitely not so far. And as far as I recall, not really.
In my recollection, again, I think you get a lot of that from people who, again, have experienced the Bible as an aesthetic, but haven't really read through the book. Which is a lot of people.
It's like the vast majority of Christians.
Right. Well, it's the vast majority of everyone. Yeah. Right. Is you experience the Bible as like, well, this is what the Catholic Church looks like, or this is what evangelical churches look like.
It's the same. As you said, it's when we were watching it, it's the same way that like Warhammer 40K has a very Catholic aesthetic.
Right. Absolutely. Right. Warhammer 40K is not like symbolic of the Catholic Church. It just has a Catholic aesthetic.
Correct.
And I actually argue there's a bit more symbolism there than there is in this.
So anyway, but they have a car escalator.
Sure do. So let's get to the next aesthetic, which is oversized military logistics stuff.
Which is rad.
It's rad and I love it.
It's fantastic.
So this giant car escalator, like you put your car on the escalator and it like turned off, presumably. And it's like getting on a ferry or something.
You can even see where the wheels are supposed to get locked into place so you don't slide off while it's moving.
Yep. Very cool. Later there will be like this giant ammo elevator thing.
Yeah.
There will be a giant gun hoisted around by cranes. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's a giant gun being hoisted around by cranes, and in the more foreground of that, it's still in the background, but it's more foreground oriented. You see like what looks like a 50 caliber disintegrated belt that's been hit by like a gigantification ray.
Yeah. It's all awesome. Utterly awesome.
It's
same thing with like the I guess let's just talk about the damn mechs. Because the thing that houses the mech is this aesthetic. It's this very like giant military logistics. Oh, you know what it reminds me of is the Vehicle Assembly Building.
Yeah.
It's the VAB. Which is a really cool building. Huge. But yeah, it there's all these like gantries, lots of like things that lock in and pull out and like that sort of thing. Very cool, very fun. Lots of service cranes and that sort of thing. And then there's the mech itself, which is this weird plated monster thing. I don't like it. I've never liked the mechs.
The only thing I like about the mech design is the way that the cockpit is this separate thing that gets like inside.
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
That's cool. I mean, okay, so for what? See, here's the thing. The mech is symbolic of like a bajillion different things. There's a million symbolic things going on with the mech design in this show. So I'm not criticizing it as like bad. It works for the show. It's what the show needs.
You just don't like
I just don't like the way they look. If I was designing a mech, it's not how I would want my mech to look.
Yeah. It's not your jam.
Yeah. But yeah, that's, the thing.
Well, I just like the way that the cockpit.
Yeah. And because the cockpit being inserted is like a blend of these two aesthetics, right?
Yeah.
On the one hand, it's the mech aesthetic of like, it's this giant humanoid form with like an injector thing into its body, but it's also that like military logistic, because the cockpit arrives on like a gantry thing and like is inserted and locked in.
And it's like it's almost fired in.
Yeah.
By like a piston mechanism.
Right. Exactly.
Really cool.
Like very cool.
And the mech itself is a weird blend of these aesthetics because it's this weird plated like monster design.
Yeah.
But it has all of these like warning signs and caution labels all over. It looks
like it was built by contract engineers who were OSHA compliant. Right? Like, it's got like do not step and like caution.
Yeah. And like caution, like high voltage and
caution, high voltage, warning, may rotate. Like, it's got a
lot of that kind of like stuff on it.
Right. Because again,
it's
good. It's like, I like that part.
Yeah. And I'm not fond.
And honestly, I think that bit works better because it's a giant kaiju monster.
Yeah.
That aesthetic is fun on your kind of like tank robot or whatever.
Or even your more like real robot, like Gundam-esque type stuff.
But that it definitely does hit hardest when the thing that you've slapped your like caution arrow on is a giant monster with like teeth. Right?
Yeah. And we see a lot of this when Shinji is taken, well, notably Shinji and Katsuragi meet the doctor, who has just gotten done scuba diving in the coolant.
Not scuba diving, snorkeling.
Oh yeah, snorkeling in the coolant.
Scuba diving I would have forgiven. Like, sure.
Yeah, she just rolls out of this.
You gotta go down there to check on the thing or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? She's a snorkel.
And not in like a full wetsuit either. No. She's in like a one-piece bathing suit. Like she just...
Well, to be fair, that liquid is roughly human body temperature. You don't need a cold suit or anything.
No, but if it's presumably hazardous, you do want less skin
Maybe it's not hazardous. Why would it be hazardous?
Oh no, I'm just saying. Like,
It's actually.
I'm saying if you're gonna say well they need to scuba dive in protective equipment and do this, then I'm also going to knock the one piece versus the wetsuit.
Oh yeah, fair. No, totally fair. But I think that this is one of the things that's like, again, it's this blending of aesthetics of like, well, even if it's not hazardous, most like worksite safety things would say, no, you gotta put on a full wetsuit and scuba down there anyway, just for safety.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, amongst anything else, the thing is so tall that if you go down low enough, the pressure's gonna matter. Right. But at the same time, knowing what this is and what this is eventually gonna like, yeah, it's totally safe. You can get in it. It's fine.
Notably, Katsuragi got lost on the way to this.
Sure did. On these like conveyor belt things, which, first of all, man, how do you get lost on a conveyor belt?
Yeah, how do you not read the signage? Like, do they just not have clearly posted signage?
I don't think there was clearly posted signage. I didn't see any signage, to be fair.
Yeah.
But also, again, like, this is the other thing aesthetically, is now we get into Gendo's aesthetic, which is utterly impractical, right? Why is everyone in this facility conveyor belted around?
Because
right?
it looks cool.
Because it looks cool, right? He will later have a conference room that is just like, no one would ever build a conference room like this.
We'll get to it more when we get to that meeting, because it is quite the
this is again this clashing of aesthetics of, we have the very real military, the like giant monster thing, and then Gendo's utter impracticality.
Yeah.
And in this case, what does that blend into? Well, giant conveyor belt system.
Yeah.
Right? It's utterly impractical, but it's still this like military conveyor belt.
Yeah, the escalator I could almost understand.
Yeah, I almost get that. It almost makes sense.
Because if you have to move, like if you're moving in a lot of your supplies by truck and you need to get a lot of trucks underground rapidly, that is a good system.
Yeah, it actually seems remarkably practical.
Yeah.
For where they need to move things to.
Yeah, and for the level of technology they seem to have.
Right, yeah. The other reason we don't have giant car escalators is because they're kind of impractical.
Yeah, they'd be
like from a physics perspective.
Like regular escalators are already a bitch to maintain.
Why we do kind of have that, but we've giant boat escalators, notably.
But there's like a very important reason for that.
Right. This is the only way to do it.
We usually just have ramps.
Yeah, and part of it is that the alternative is the problem with the car escalator is not the difficulty of a car escalator. It's that a sloped road is just as effective.
Yeah.
But why not just have a sloped road?
Right, exactly, because that's what I was thinking. Is like
it's not really that the thing doesn't work. It's that there's another easier thing.
Well, and so notably when they're rolling around on the escalators, this is what you were talking about earlier with the increasingly more and more insane shit in the background.
Yeah.
And they're just all talking like Dr. Ritsuko and Katsuragi and Shinji are all talking to each other.
The other one looks kind of weirded out of Shinji. Because he's never been here before.
Even him, it's less, he's more just uncomfortable in general, and he has been since he got...
He's slightly odd when they first enter the, city area.
Yeah. But, I mean, if that's your first time seeing
it, it looks cool.
But, like, the rest of it...
He is awed by the majesty of the Brass Pro Shop.
Wouldn't you be?
Yeah, 100%. Again, we take that virtual tour. So yeah,
stay tuned for that.
Okay, so they have a few conversations here. There's not much of substance in them.
No, there's a bit of alluding.
It's a lot of jargon.
There's a lot of jargon, and there's a bit of alluding that they're short on manpower right now.
Yeah,
they mentioned that a few times up to this point.
Which sounds like, we don't have a bunch of decent short on manpower in the sense that we have one, we need two.
Yeah, we have one, and one is currently out,
incapacitated.
They have reached a stage in their XCOM campaign where their like A team is out, and they don't have a like.
You're
B team
theoretically allowed to deploy them injured, but it's a bad idea.
And so you're like, I guess I'm gonna have to send in these recruits that I never used before.
Yeah.
And hope that some of them survive.
You're down into the recruits that have exhausted your custom name pool and are just like Jimmy Ramirez. Yeah. You're like, all right.
I hope you survive, Jimmy Ramirez.
Yeah, I don't even need you to survive. I need you to get me through this one so the A-team can heal.
Yeah, I kind of need you to just go on this terror mission so I don't get the penalty for going on the terror mission, because that's way worse than just
I needed to
failing the terror mission. Yeah. Like, I need to not ignore the terror mission, because that's a huge penalty.
Right, but I can afford to fail it.
Yeah, right. I just need to keep China happy enough.
Yeah, exactly. That's clearly the entire purpose of Nerf. Is to keep Gendo Ikari has a little map of all the countries' happiness with Nerf.
Yeah, and like
Maps deploying satellites.
Yeah, and like their funding levels, and so he's like, all right. So Japan is like our biggest funder right now
for whatever reason,
and like,
well, that's just where he started. Japan start. Right,
because he started in Japan because his two biggest funders are South Korea and China. Yeah. And like, it's sort of close enough to America that
you're gonna get to the U.S. pretty quick. Like,
like theoretically they could deploy to the West Coast.
Exactly.
Well, we find out they have a facility in Germany too.
Sure do.
Because they're gonna get a transfer from there eventually.
Later.
I think the next episode, after episode 2, rather.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Yeah, we'll get to that in time.
But yeah, this is a thing that's gonna be the case for a lot of this show. It's important to talk about it now. But this is where a lot of people sort of like get lost in Evangelion. Is that a lot of the dialogue is not about the dialogue. They are saying things. The specific things they are saying are not super important. What's important is the feel of the dialogue. Right? You don't have to follow each and every sentence. You have to follow, they are having a conversation about jargon right now.
Yeah.
Right? That is what is important in the scene, not the specific, like, thing they're talking about. Because it's real easy to get lost in the sauce of, like, I don't know what that term means. Yeah, you're not supposed to.
Yeah. So, that's right. Then we get to when... we get to the point where Shinji sees the Eva.
Yup.
And
this scene is great.
First of all, it starts really funny.
Yeah, because it's dark and they turn the lights on, and the head of this Eva, which is a giant kaiju, right? Just suddenly, lights up in front of him, and he goes, ah!
He makes the funniest fucking scream.
Oh, it jump scares him. It straight up jump scares him.
If you probably, most of you by this point have had that one friend that you jump scare all the time because their like scream or reaction is funny as shit.
Yeah.
Shinji is that friend.
Yeah, he is. And he will get jump scared repeatedly. So,
Well, so then Ritsuko's like, Shinji, you're gonna pilot that.
Yeah.
And at first Katsuragi's like, are you insane?
Yeah.
He hasn't been trained. He doesn't know how any of it works.
She really says it took Rei 7 months
to synchronize.
To synchronize.
Yeah, and she's like, look, we just need him to get in it.
Yeah, which a lot of things going on here. We're finding out, first of all, okay, there's some kind of like synchronization and training that you're supposed to have that he doesn't have at all. But also we're finding out that like apparently you don't need to be any good at this. You just have to be able to turn it on.
Or at least Shinji doesn't need to be any good at this.
True. But the implication is that nobody needs to be any good at this. You just have to be able to turn it on.
Yeah. And they have a bit of an argument, and then Gendo appears.
Gendo appears above them, silhouetted by like, this is symbolism, right? That cross is a red herring. This is symbolism.
Yeah.
Right?
So we see this control room light up from the blackness beyond the Evangelion. And Gendo is silhouetted, hands folded behind back, staring down upon them.
And this is where I will allow a little bit of biblical symbolism, not just aesthetic. Because it is the Father on high commanding the Son to sacrifice himself.
Yeah.
Straight up. Right? So...
Yeah, I should note, we kind of skipped over this, but when Shinji arrives, Gendo gets notified, and he goes, the replacement, or the spare has arrived.
Yup.
Which
we
is
also
like,
at some point we saw that like Shinji, Mitsuragi like asked him like, oh, did you get like an ID card? And it like he pulls it out, it's like taped together, and it has like a note from Gendo that's just like, come. Right.
Yeah, it says come, and then it's all redacted, like half of it's redacted.
Yeah.
Yeah, and notably, what's funny about
also we found out in that conversation Shinji has no idea what Gendo does.
Yeah. Well, and notably,
they just told him it was important.
What I think is funny is he shows her this like ID.
Yeah.
And she doesn't question it. She's like, "Oh yeah, no, that's legit." And it's like,
okay,
that it's taped together and is like just a note.
Yeah, but it has Gendo's signature, so.
Oh, of course.
That's enough.
Those can't be forged.
Anyhow.
Anyway,
yeah, this scene happens.
Yeah.
There's an argument. He doesn't want to pilot the thing.
Well, he rightfully gets mad at his father because he hasn't seen his father.
Yeah, he's like, I thought you didn't want me. Like, what the hell?
And then his dad just says, but now you are of use.
Yeah, now you are of use to me. Which, father goals. Like, Gendo Ikari is my spirit animal.
It says a lot about you and none of it good.
That's correct.
Child.
And as
good, you have become useful to me.
Actually, really, Gendo Ikari is my father. Is the correct.
Oh, God.
The reason I identify with Gendo Ikari is because he reminds me of my dad. Look, my dad used to legitimately say to us that the best reason to have kids was because they were free labor around the house.
Yeah, I knew friends who had...
Now, the difference is Gendo means it, and my dad was like half joking.
At least half joking.
But it doesn't change the fact that Gendo Ikari reminds me of my father.
Oh, yeah. No, that's fair. But yeah, Gendo then is like, okay, well, if you don't want to pilot it that badly,
yeah,
roll in the cripple.
Yeah.
And they roll in Rei Ayanami. This is our introduction to Rei Ayanami, where she is just on a gurney, like she's in traction.
It's also worth noting the Angel is slowly approaching their facility.
Oh yeah, and is starting to bombard it.
Yes, which is relevant.
It's trying to see how many licks it takes to get to the
center of the nerve HQ.
Yeah,
fair.
1, 2, 3.
He just had this weird owl mask thing too.
Yeah, crunch. 3.
Yeah.
And yeah, the facility is starting to quake at this point. So everyone's like, Shinji, just get in the stupid robot. We're all gonna die if you don't get it. We're all gonna die.
Please get, literally the meme. Get in the robot, Shinji.
Yeah, and we're not quite at that line yet because that happens the second time he pilots it, which we haven't gotten to yet. Correct. But he does see Rei in like critical condition.
Yeah,
and he, because her wounds are still bleeding.
Right. And he's like, well, she's got one more in her.
Well, and then notably, part of the facility collapses at this point.
Yes.
And Shinji
destroys the Bass Pro Shop.
Yeah, and Shinji raises his arms to like shield himself futilely against the rubble, and then the Eva raises its arm to block the rubble from hitting him. 1,
they are saved. Good. 2,
they are flabbergasted.
Everyone freaks out because that shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Right? Not only has he never piloted the thing or synced up and it's supposed to take 7 months for him to figure out how, also, like,
he's supposed to be inside it.
He's supposed to have to be inside it to do that. Also, like, none of the pre-flight has been done. Like, the reactor hasn't been powered on. Like,
yeah, it just moved.
It just did that.
It's
not supposed to just. This is a piece of when military equipment just does that, you have a problem.
Yeah,
right?
That's like if you're like working on an Abrams tank.
Even if what it does is to like save your life, you still if your Abrams, like, while its engine is off, suddenly jumps in front of a bullet for you, you still freak out. It's not supposed to do that.
Yeah, you're like, are you a transformer?
Yeah, like what is going on?
Yeah.
The engine was or like I actually a better example would be like, your Abrams is off, you're doing maintenance, and suddenly like the turret swivels around and shoots a thing that was about to attack you.
Yeah.
Right? And you're just like
it swivels around and the coax machine gun like takes out like a wolf that was about to jump on you.
One, it's not supposed to be able to do that. Two, it's not supposed to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But also three, it's really scary that it can do that, because what if it's not your friend someday?
Yeah, like what if it one day decides not to protect you but destroy you?
Well, and we get a little bit of that here and a little bit later of like, these machines are not totally safe.
They're not totally safe, and it's very clear that like there is some eldritch shit going on with these things.
They're not
and yeah, so everyone begs and controls them. They roll out the cripple to like
right, and then so he goes after it like blocks the rubble. He goes to, because she's been like thrown off the cart or whatever. He goes to like grab her, sees like blood on his hand from her like
and
open
she
wound.
starts screaming in pain.
Right, and he's like, well, you get this little inner monologue of like, don't run away, don't run away, don't run away, don't run away.
And then he stands up and says, "Fine,
I'll pilot it." And they're like, "Awesome, great,
cool, get him in. Don't even suit him up, just get him in."
Yeah. Don't. We're not the uniform for you yet. Just put him in the thing, and they don't tell him that in order to pilot this thing, you're gonna get submerged in breathable liquid,
which exists,
which is a real thing.
Doesn't work quite like this.
It doesn't work quite like this. It's not nearly this easy to use.
Yeah, notably, so this stuff exists and it's hard to use for a couple reasons. First of all, it's very unpleasant for the person breathing it.
You want to use it on someone who's unconscious, right?
Right.
When you're unconscious, you kind of don't have a choice. Your pain reaction to the fact that you're breathing liquid won't, override your breathing, right?
Because one of the problems that they found with it when they first started trying to use it, is that the subjects felt like they were drowning,
right?
Even though they're not.
Yeah. Just because you have sufficient oxygen doesn't mean your lungs are happy with the fact that gas exchange has become liquid exchange.
Yeah.
Right?
And the other problem is it's really hard to get it back out of the lungs.
Yeah.
Which is why
you've given yourself like advanced pneumonia.
Yeah, which is why one of the only like things they use it for is like infants,
right,
that their lungs aren't quite fully developed yet.
Right. And also infants are already kind of built to breathe liquid because it's what they did in the womb.
Exactly.
Which is relevant here.
Yeah. This is a very much,
speaking of symbolism,
very much symbolism for the womb. This thing is set up like a womb.
He has been inserted into the womb. I'm sure that's not going to be relevant to the rest of the show.
Not at all. This is just another red herring symbolism.
She's totally red herring aesthetic that he's literally been re-wombified.
Yeah. And then they go through the pre-flight sequence, and this is this show also gets this kind of, because it's that part of that military aesthetic where they go through all of the checks, and you got like a bunch of different people in the background saying checks and like going through the whole list.
It's like launching a rocket. Right? This is mission control. This is
it's the same kind of cool feeling where with the old rocket launches where they used to actually broadcast the audio of mission control during it on TV.
Well, some of it.
But enough of it to like give you that vibe of
if you've ever watched Apollo 13, you get to see this happen.
Yeah, and it's one of the coolest scenes in the movie.
Notably, this is a little different because they're actually talking about the specific things.
Yeah.
Apollo 13 actually does it more correctly, where what you do is you go to every single like head of department and be like, does your department like, are we go or no go for launch? Right? Medical is go. Engines is go.
All that stuff.
They don't specifically tell the guy in charge like about each green light they have. They just say, yes, all of our lights are green.
And there's
still, it's very cool.
There's another scene like this in a future episode that is really,
I did have
cool.
a slight quibble with their pre-flight in that they start undoing the gantries and stuff, and then the guy says that the batteries are fully charged. a thing that should have come much earlier in your pre-flight sequence.
Yeah, like
you do not start launching and then check the batteries.
Like it probably should have been like pilot pod has been inserted, liquid has been filled, pilot life signs nominal.
Right. Batteries are fully charged.
Batteries are charged. Neuronet connection.
Yeah, neuronet connection is good. Ejector pod is functional. Yeah, right. Et cetera, et cetera.
Systems are green. Okay, undoing gantry 1.
Yeah. Okay. Now we undo gantry 1. Yeah. Now we actually go through you do pre-flight and then launch. You don't mix the two.
Well, you could. And maybe because they're rushing it because they want to get this thing out of there.
Yeah, maybe they're just going through it as fast as they can. Yeah, maybe.
And then when this thing launches.
So first we have to talk about them drowning Shinji.
Yes, drowning Shinji.
Right, because again, they haven't told him about this liquid breathing thing. They just strap him in and fill the thing with liquid, and he holds his breath, right? Because
and they're like, no, Shinji, you can stop holding your breath.
No, you can breathe that. It's fine.
You can breathe it. It's fine. It's supposed to happen.
And he's like, no.
And then he's forced to
eventually he runs out of air and
mouth opens on.
But they do just drown. Which it's fun. This kid is gonna have a lot of trauma throughout the entire show. Weirdly, I don't think the fact that I was drowned ever comes up.
No,
which is weird because drowning's really traumatic.
Yeah, you literally, I almost drowned when I was really, really little, to the point where I can't really remember all of it or even most of it. Because I sink like a rock. In general, even now I can't float. But this incident, because my step grandpa told me jokingly to jump into a pool, not thinking I'd actually do it, but I'm like a little kid, and so I'm like, oh, he told me to do it, I'll go do it.
Yeah. And
I jumped in with no flotation device whatsoever, didn't know how to swim or anything like that, and just sank right to the bottom. And luckily my cousin was also my older cousin was in the pool, and she pulled me out. But I think that still is part of the reason why I just don't like deep water.
No, yeah, I've nearly drowned repeatedly. It sucks. And it would be infinitely worse if you actually drowned, right? Because nearly drowning sucks, but then you get to live. Right? Versus he had to fully go through the sequence of I got to the point of not having enough air that I was forced to suck in liquid. Yeah. Right? A thing that I have never done. I have ingested seawater on many an occasion getting hit by a wave, but I've never been underwater unable to breathe to the point that my lungs forced me to inhale whatever was in front of me and died. Right.
I haven't quite gotten to that stage either.
Obviously you haven't, because it kills you.
Right. But people who have been brought back from that.
Yeah.
If you catch it quick, if you get them back quick enough, you can resuscitate them.
Yeah, theoretically, yeah.
And it has happened it's rare.
It sucks. You don't want to do that.
And they, most of those people just don't even want to go near water again.
Yeah, obviously. So it shocks me that this doesn't come up again.
Well, right. And you would think that, as you're strapping him in, that someone, while the tech is, hey, now, really quick, this pod is going to fill with liquid. It is oxygenated liquid. You can breathe it. You will be fine. You are not going to drown.
Oh God, these people.
You will want to hold your breath. Don't.
Right. Which still would have sucked for him. He still probably would have been traumatic. It still would have sucked for him. But at least somebody would have told him ahead of time.
Yeah, at least someone would have warned him.
Right.
Which it still wouldn't have taken away from the trauma of it.
No, it really wouldn't. Because he probably still would have done the same thing.
Yeah, because it's a reflex thing.
Right.
He hasn't gone through any training where they gradually go through these steps and or even
it would make the people doing it to him look less like assholes if they had warned him ahead of time.
No, but
it wouldn't have changed what happened to him.
They just drop him in it.
They just nope. Yeah, here you go.
And then they launch the robot, and man, what a launch!
Yeah, it does this high G vertical tunnel launch thing
on a catapult.
On a catapult, yeah, it's sort of a catapult. It's an elevator.
Yeah,
right?
It's an elevator.
It's a high speed elevator,
and it's an elevator where it's not in it's in a harness.
Which, also, I mean, I guess he's breathing liquid at this point that's been pressurized. It's fine, but they're down low enough. You should get the bends. Well, again, I mean, they said that the cockpit's pressurized.
Well, not just that, but like one of the things that they originally were experimenting with liquid oxygen for is specifically to avoid the bend.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so he's okay, but it's funny.
Yeah.
It's like, if you were to be on this elevator and like not in the cockpit,
you would get the bends.
A lot of things would go wrong very quickly.
Yeah. There's a reason why scuba divers don't just swim directly to the surface when they go really deep on a dive.
Yeah, correct. Well, these people aren't. Yeah, they're not underwater, so the air pressure down there is probably not super high, but it's going to be higher than 1 atmosphere by a fair bit, probably.
Yeah, high enough that you would get the bends by crash, like ascending like that.
Funny. Anyway, but yeah, it's cool. They get up. Notably, getting up to the surface also doesn't like finish the launch sequence. Technically, right? There is a final safety that must be released. Again, they are really hammering home how many safety checks there are on this thing.
Yeah,
because it's dangerous.
Yeah, because notably, all of the coolness of it kind of distracts from the fact that this is an awful lot of like locks and stuff that you have on a military vehicle. Like we don't launch jets from like carriers going like unlock 16 different gantries and like the restraining bolt.
We don't keep an FA-18 behind like a bunch of chains with padlocks on it. Yeah. Right? Because if it gets out, it'll hurt people. Yeah. Like We do not treat military equipment like it is a caged animal. This thing is treated more like an animal than a
military vehicle.
Yeah, and you're
gonna see why.
We'll find out why
in next episode, because Shinji gets up, they undo the final safety locks because they undo the final safety locks, and then it shows him dramatically facing off with the angel, and then we roll into Fly Me to the Moon.
Sure do.
And meme has accomplished, and then they have like an old school 90s to early 2000s era next episode on Evangelion.
Yeah, they do. Very old school, very
a Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Spoils the entire next episode if you watch it.
Yeah, it does,
which is fun.
So then we see in episode 2 after the opening, Shinji is confronting the angel, and they ask him, "Are you ready, Shinji?" "Yeah, I'm ready. We will soon find out he is not ready."
Why they release the final safety lock?
Yeah, and then they release the final safety lock, and we find out Shinji's not ready.
Yeah. Well, he tries to walk forward, takes like 1 step. It's very like, "Mein Faser, I can walk."
Well, Ritsuko basically does that. She does. He's walking.
Remember, they have sent him. The angel is standing in front of him for a fight. They have sent him out for combat, right?
Right. Well, and they're ecstatic that he even managed to synchronize with this thing, and that the systems are all green. Because notably, and I did forget to mention this last episode, they're like,
he has like a synchronization level. It's off the charts.
Yeah, it's like he's at 100% sync. Oh my god!
His midichlorian count's really high.
Yeah, right. And then when he starts, because she goes, "Just try to walk."
Right. And again, remember that he's not in some bay far from the action. The angel is in front of him. They elevated him to 30 feet from him. The angel
is in melee range of him.
Yeah, and he's trying to figure out how to walk.
The angel is like maybe 500 meters away from him.
And crucially, Gendo at least, and seemingly everyone else too, but especially Gendo, is like, "This is fine. This will be okay. Yeah. It's fine."
Well, and then
they're walking him through the video game tutorial of like, press W to walk forward. And that's in front of his opponent.
And that's as far as they get.
Because he falls over.
Well, no, he doesn't fall over yet. It grabs it. Well, it hits.
He falls over first. He just falls over on his own.
Oh, yeah.
He takes 1 step and trips over. Because he can't pilot the stupid thing.
Right. Well, then and
then it attacks him.
Then it attacks him, and first it attacks him by picking up by his head and grabbing his mech's arm.
Yeah.
And that's when we figure out what the synchronization means.
Yeah. Because we find out it means that he feels what the robot feels.
and it's ripping off his arm.
It's trying to rip his arm off.
And he's clutching his arm in excruciating pain.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, no, it's fine. It's not your real arm.
It's not your real arm. Ignore that.
It's like, it feels like his real arm, though.
Yeah. Well, and we get a little jargon here about, like, it's using its AT field to do this, and his AT field is not engaged.
Yeah.
Which is a problem.
Yeah. And then it rips.
Because basically it shouldn't be. They're like, why is it able? One of the reasons that this was okay is that if his AT field had been on, it wouldn't have been able to touch him.
Right.
Right. It wouldn't have mattered.
They would have had enough time to
he could have walked around going through the entire tutorial while it wailed on him futilely. Right. Yeah.
But it wasn't on.
But his AT field, he's so bad at this, his AT field's not on.
Yeah, and he doesn't even know that it needs to be on, or what an AT field even is, or what it does.
Neither do we, so let's move on.
Yeah. So then Shinji really gets rocked. Because this thing picks his mech up by the head. Well, him by extension in a way.
Yeah.
And then it has like this energy pile bunker thing.
It does. It's very cool.
This like pillar of energy forms and cocks back. And then slams into the...
So what's interesting about... this weapon looks cool.
Mm-hmm.
But also, this weapon is clearly designed to fight Evangelion.
Yeah.
Right? This weapon does nothing against, like, helicopters and tanks and a city. Right? Like, this angel has this weapin
to fight
this.
Yeah. And the thing hammers him.
It's hitting the cockpit repeatedly. They tell you, like, oh, the armor's not going to stand up for very long. Also, like, there's a threat to the cockpit, which is bad. And right? We lose any other part of the mech, but the cockpit's kind of bad.
There's also threat of, like, neural backlash to Shinji.
Yeah.
And Gendo's just like, it's fine.
It's fine, whatever.
It's fine.
It'll all be okay. Like, he's just watching. He doesn't even say it'll all be okay. He just... watches.
He just watches. Completely stoic.
Yeah. And then eventually it, like, punctures through.
And
there's this, like, blood spurt.
Yeah.
Presumably it's the liquid from earlier, but it looks like blood. Shinji screams. And, you know, truthfully, it's blood spurt from both ends. It's very cool. That's it. That's the end of the fight.
Well, it cuts from the fight.
Well, they scream that they're gonna have to, like, abort. And then we're done.
Oh, actually... This is also, I think, when they're like, oh, no, that happens later.
Yeah.
So they're like, we're gonna have to abort, and then it cuts.
We're gonna have to get our pilot out of there, and then we just cut to Shinji in hospital room.
Yep, and it's like super washed out.
Yeah,
and like I really like the like
he wakes up in a hospital room, and it's
almost monochrome.
I love this so much. This is the coolest way any mech show has ever done this. Like. I have so many criticisms of this show, but also there are so many things about it that are really, really fucking cool and really, really well done. Like, the writers knew what the fuck they were doing.
Yeah.
I love how
So Shinji wakes up in a hospital. He kind of glances around, like, where the hell
am I? Last I knew, I was being murdered.
Yeah, and then it cuts from, before we even get anything else from Shinji, we just see him waking up.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to the Shadow Council meeting.
Sure does.
Because there's no other way to describe this room other than the Shadow Council meeting hall.
So there's like 5 dudes, one of whom is more important
6
than the
dudes.
other. Well, 5 dudes who are talking to
Gendo. Yeah.
And one of them is more important than the other 4, clearly. Because
he's on the opposite end of the table from
and they're like, one, they're color coded.
Second, we need to describe this room.
Yeah, it's weird.
So the room is all black.
So I think that part actually makes, because we'll find out they're holograms, right? Because their holograms are going to turn off eventually. The way you project a hologram would be to an all black room. That part kind of scans. This is the only way. Assuming you're working on 90s understanding of technology, this is the only way to do a hologram, right? Sure, I'll allow it. But it does also aesthetically, like, it's an all-black room with these creepy conference dudes.
You half expect from, like, the Justice Friends, the narrator from the Justice Friends, to go, meanwhile at the Legion of Doom.
Yeah, they are just look. Well, and it's so part of it is the color coding. Part of it is also just like the camera angle and the way that their faces are presented is villainous.
These guys kind of also remind me of the villainous doctors from Gundam Wing.
Yes, it's the same like line work and camera work and stuff.
Yeah,
as that of like, this is how you present villains.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we see them. There's usually like one in the foreground, one in the background, and they have this very like angled.
Mm-hmm.
It's you know what it is? It's like a wide angle lens.
Yeah.
On them, and it like. Yeah, I don't know. It just the way that they look is villainous, right? When you see it, you go, "Yup." Like,
yeah, it's very strange.
Well,
not strange.
It's not strange. It's just like okay,
Gendo, you have a weird aesthetic, buddy.
Right? Because Gendo like built this room, right? Like Gendo had this room designed for him.
Yes.
And this is the aesthetic of this room is pure Gendo, right? There's no other aesthetic encroaching here.
Yeah.
This is how Gendo would like the whole world to be. Is creepy, weird, villainous, like.
Yeah. And then four of the guys leave.
So they have a conversation. Yeah. It's basically like, Gendo, your project is like over budget and under delivering. Like,
yeah, it's behind schedule.
Yeah,
like the machine is not functioning to the specifications that you said it would function at.
Yeah, you promised us the weapon to end all weapons, and we got like this weird kaiju.
Yeah, we got 5 minutes of mayhem.
Right. Yeah. And does Gendo even talk at any point in this scene?
No.
I don't think they just talk at him.
He replies once. It's after the first four guys leave.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, so because they have their whole like sort of meeting, and then the four guys who aren't across from him leave. Right? Like, okay, meeting done. We have sufficiently like lectured Gendo. And then the last guy, I don't even remember what they say.
Look, you gotta understand, Gendo, you need to start producing results. He's like,
yeah,
like, we're on a time crunch here.
Yeah.
And then Gendo responds, don't worry, it'll be ready, or something like that. Something cryptic.
Yeah.
That's like a cryptic reassurance. And the guy's like, all right.
These guys are presumably from the UN. Well, there's been UN logos on everything military.
But these guys all are wearing the same uniform as Gendo. These guys are Nerve's board members.
Oh, I guess. So probably. I mean, where would Nerve get its board members other than? Well, is Nerve a company?
It's interesting because it seems to be like someone at some point, I presume, because they never go into this.
Because I always thought these guys are just like leaders of countries that are funding Nerve.
Well, that's what I assumed too. But notably, these guys are not the leaders of their nations, and they're not the same guys that were in the UN uniforms previously.
Yeah. Well, they're not those guys previously were the military people. These guys would be like civilian leadership.
I don't think they are, though, because those guys later on outright state that they think Nerve's goal is to eventually supplant the UN and take over the world.
Yeah.
Like, these guys are basically, like, this is like Umbrella Corp, but for mechs.
Yeah. But also, again, I don't think Nerve's a company.
Yeah, but I think these guys, I don't think they're the leaders of their nations. What I'm saying is I think that they're fairly influential figures within their nation's politics.
Because the other thing is that visually they are coded as being from, like... one of them looks French. Well, one of them, the big guy on the end is clearly American.
Well, they all have different accents.
That too.
Because this is one of the rare anime where they allowed the voice actors to do accents.
Well, but I just even mean like visually, right?
Oh yeah,
like,
I know visually, but like also they have the accents.
Yeah,
like, there's a lot of. I'm saying there's a lot of coding for different nations here, but again, I think because again, Nerve has branches in other countries, And they seem to be separate from the UN command structure because...
Well, they're not really separate from the command structure, but I always assumed it was at least nominally like a UN project still.
I don't know, because the UN seems to have a rivalry with them.
Well, yeah, but inter-service rivalry is not new.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying, like, it's this weird... Again, they don't go into this, so it's unclear. But it's like this weird halfway point between a PMC and, like, Lockheed Martin.
I guess.
It's really odd.
Yeah, I don't know.
I feel like the other movies and stuff go into it more.
Yeah, a little bit. Just because, like, at no point is there any discussion of the idea that they're producing the Evas for, like, sale.
Well, that's not the goal, though.
Right, but if they were ostensibly a company, that's a thing that they should theoretically be paying lip service to.
Right, but
it's clearly we are doing this on behalf of these people who do this thing.
Well, what I'm getting at, though, is I think these people that are in this room are not part of the UN. They are the guys who got UN to put Nerve into the fold.
Sure, there's the Illuminati. I don't know.
Yeah, they're the Illuminati. I guess calling them the board of directors is not correct.
Because I don't think these guys are, like, part of Nerve. Right? They're, like, above it.
Well, no, I think they are part of Nerve. I think they're the controlling factors of Nerve.
I don't know.
They're not. I don't think they're direct. They probably are. They might even be directly part of the UN, but I think they are also part of, like, Nerve. Like, they are the part of the UN. They're the UN committee that oversees Nerve directly.
Sure. Sure.
That's just how I thought it seemed to me.
To me, I've always thought these guys are just like the UN Security Council.
See, but there's no American one.
Yeah, there is. It's the big one at the back.
Oh, I thought he's different.
Definitely American.
All right, fair enough.
He is very coded as how Japanese people portray Americans in anime.
Fair enough. I guess I wasn't really paying that much attention to them, their actual character design.
And, like, the red one is definitely Russian.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, that's largely ancillary. Like I said, they don't really go into it that much. But we then cut to this next scene is a little bit of an intercut between two different things that are going on.
A little bit, yeah.
Because Shinji gets out of his hospital room and is just walking around. We notice, first of all, there's no doctors.
Yeah, nobody notices he wakes up and, like, comes and attends to him or anything. He just gets out of bed. Because he's not hurt. He's fine.
Yeah, and...
Well, physically, he's fine.
Yeah, and he sees Rei looking slightly better, being pushed by him
wheeled on gurney.
Yeah, wheeled by on a gurney. And that's intercut between Dr. Ritsuko and Katsuragi.
Yes.
Overseeing the recovery of the Eva.
Yeah.
Eva 1 specifically.
Yes. Eva 01.
And we also, I think, is this the point where we start seeing certain... No, not yet. Not quite yet. Because I was about to say, because we see flashes of Eva 0 during this episode as well, but...
No. Oh, well, yes, but...
Not at this point.
Not at this point. This is, I think in that meeting is the first time Eva 0 was mentioned, though.
Yeah, they mentioned
Gendo mentioned that Eva 0 was going to be, like, back to functioning.
Yeah, and he does mention that, like,
I think that's the thing he said after they all left.
Yeah, and then he also mentions that Rei will be, like, ready to work again in, like, 20 days or something like that.
That's later. That's when he's looking at the program.
Oh, yeah.
That's when Eva 00.
That happens later.
Yes.
Okay. Right, because it happens after a certain other scene that we'll get to.
Yeah, it sure does.
So, yeah, but and this is just more jargon.
Yeah, it is.
But it's, like, good jargon again.
Yeah, again, it's very
and
well
also
done,
we get to see scenes of, like, the crane, like, and crew moving bits of the Eva, like, onto, like recovery vehicles. To haul back for repair and refit.
And they have this, there's also a little bit of character stuff here where, because Mitsuragi is like, if everybody, does their job and everything works, we could actually get through this. Like, you're such a stupid optimist.
Yeah, Katsuragi.
Yeah.
Is it Mitsuko?
Mitsuko Katsuragi? Sure, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Anyhow, they do that. Then they go and pick up Shinji. Well,
Yep.
Mitsuko goes and picks up Shinji from the hospital.
Sure does.
And as they're leaving the hospital, they open the door, and there's Gendo Ikari. And Gendo Ikari immediately...
It's an elevator.
Oh,
they
hit
the call button for an elevator. The elevator shows up and opens the door. Gendo is standing in the elevator already, and he stares at Shinji. Shinji stares back at him, and they stare long enough that the elevator door closes again and Gendo leaves.
Yeah.
Like, with no words spoken.
Yeah.
Just this... First of all, Gendo doesn't want to talk to Shinji, but also just like, they called this elevator and neither of them is getting in the elevator with Gendo. Like,
yeah. No.
There's not even a motion. There is an immediate understanding. We are not taking this elevator.
Yeah.
Like, we will wait for another.
And Gendo's like, it's this thing where if they did an abridged of this, it would probably be a scene of like, we're not taking this elevator. And then Gendo in a monotone going, that's probably for the best.
Yeah. But none of that needs to be said.
No.
There's just, they stare until the door automatically closes again. Like,
either that or it'd be the door opens and then there's less staring. It's just like quick cut to Gendo's face, quick cut to Shinji and Mitsuko's face, and then door closes and the elevator shoots up faster.
What happens. But
but they do it faster because
but it's
yeah.
More character building of Gendo, right? Both that again, his son has just been through a traumatic experience where he did the thing that Gendo wanted him to do. Right?
And
there's no word of praise.
There's no reward or anything.
Recognition.
No.
There's just the eyes that say, don't get in this elevator with me.
Yeah.
I don't want to be this close to you.
And the complete understanding from the other side of, yeah, I don't want to get in that elevator.
Yeah, not going.
Neither of us want to get in this elevator.
Neither of us wants to, If we get in this elevator, like, an emotional bond might accidentally form between us, and we cannot allow that.
Yeah.
Please send the elevator along. Yeah, no, you know what I would, if I was doing an abridged series, I would leave the scene exactly the same, except that Gendo would reach out and push the closed door button.
Yeah.
Like,
no, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah. Just totally silently closed door.
And it would be very slow too. Like you just slowly like cut his hand into the frame where you just boop.
Yeah, correct.
You just hear the ding. And you'd hear the elevator music. The elevator music would kick on like right as the thing.
But again, none of that, this scene is done really well.
Oh, yeah.
With no words spoken, we understand completely
the relationship between all these characters.
The relationship between every single one of these characters, who each one of them is, right? Gendo is the imperious monster. Shinji is the cowardly child who doesn't know who he is.
And Mitsuko is the person who just doesn't want to get in an elevator with their boss.
Well, Mitsuko is
she's one part like a little bit angry older sister kind of thing where she's like, you put, Shinji in that.
I also get a vibe here of like part of her job is to keep Shinji away from Gendo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and she has just like the look. Part of the look is Gendo looking at her and being like, "You almost just fucked up." Right?
Yeah, that's true.
Like you are failing your job right now. Why is this child near me?
Yeah, like I specifically hired you. I specifically tasked you with keeping this child out of my presence unless I decide.
It's like I don't know.
If
you've ever done like babysitting for people, right? But it's like if you're babysitting and you have to like get the kid's parent for something, right?
Yeah.
Right. It's the very like, I have failed to do my job at this point.
Yeah.
Right. Because for whatever reason I require the parent.
Yes.
I must interrupt the thing that I was specifically tasked with making sure they can do.
So then we have the scene the next scene, which is Shinji moving in with Katsuragi. And it's super awkward.
Oh my god. And so the funny thing is, everything that's happened previously, I'm gonna say that this is where the show gets weird.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, no, the
in a variety of ways.
Everything else up to this point has been like, sure, yeah, I can handle, eldritch mecha horror monstrosities fighting kaijus and an imperious father who hates his son and whatever else. No. This is where the show gets weird. The weirdness of Evangelion is not in the technobabble. It's not in the metaphors for the womb. It's in shit like this scene. Because this is fucking weird.
Mitsuko is a weird person. And we see just how weird as after they have a bit of like small talk back and forth.
She like chugs a beer and like flip-flops on personality mid-conversation repeatedly. Where she's like good cop, bad copping Shinji, but all at once. As one person. It's like she is instantly like aggressive and physical with him and then like nice and sweet. You know what it is? As much as it comes off as weird to us, it is a way that a lot of older sisters are portrayed in Japanese media. Not that weird, actually.
No, and I think honestly, it's her ham-fistedly attempting to try and like help Shinji.
Yes.
And it's not working.
No, it's
not.
And
she can see it's not working.
He's unresponsive to all of this.
And she gets increasingly desperate to like try to like get some sort of like rapport going.
Right.
So that she can start digging into the trauma. But he's not even giving her that.
No, he's not. There's also, and
then she's like, well, just go take a bath.
Right. We get more before that, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's stuff like her fridge is entirely stocked with beer.
Yeah, it is nothing but beer.
Her cooking consists of microwaving random crap.
Yeah.
He asks what's in the other refrigerator, and she says, "Oh, he's probably asleep."
Yeah.
I love this and I hate this at the same time. It's because it's funny, but it's also like weird.
Yeah,
and it gets weirder.
Yeah, because then she goes, take a bath. It'll help clear your head.
Right. Yeah,
and not unsound advice.
Yeah, sure, fine.
So you'd be surprised what a hot bath or like a hot shower.
And then we see Shinji nude.
Because he opens the shower.
Well, so even before, like, we see him from behind opening the shower, ass on full display. We never see his dick, right? It's always tastefully like behind a beer can or something.
Yeah.
Right, but full on nude.
Yeah.
In a way, again, this is part of the weirdness of this show. It is this, right? Of like, I don't know, it's just a weird shot to give us.
Yeah.
Like, why?
Yeah.
Have him wrap a towel around his waist. You didn't need to do it this way, but you did.
Yeah.
And I think it is it's a little bit like making fun of the fact that like lots of shows would do this with a female character. Right? So there is some sort of commentary there.
Yeah, there is a little bit of that, I think.
Like, if this was a female character, like everybody like, yeah, shower scene.
Well, and I think it's also because this is around the time where because Gainax had a reputation up to this point, because they've done a lot of other stuff.
Yeah.
Notably, Studio Gainax is what ended up becoming Studio Trigger.
Yeah.
Like, most of Gainax ended up moving to Studio Trigger when the studio dissolved.
Yeah.
And they have a reputation that they still carry to this day, which is called Gainaxing. And it's literally just gratuitous ass shots of women.
Yeah.
And I wonder
this is gratuitous ass shot of man, which, sure. Notably, we did just get a gratuitous ass shot in the previous scene of Katsuragi.
Yeah.
Like while she's like threatening him, I guess. It's not really threatening, but like cajoling
him.
Yeah. Like she leans across the table to grab him, and the camera absolutely flips around to just her ass fills the screen.
Yeah, it's a classic Gainax shot.
Yeah. And then again, we jump to like him, because she's not nude in that scene. She's clothed. And then he's nude, and we get a gratuitous ass shot of him. and commentary.
And we also get introduced to the best character in the show,
the best character,
which is Pen Pen.
Pen Pen the penguin.
He's an actual honest-to-God emperor penguin.
He's not an emperor.
Oh, no.
Red-crested.
Oh, he's a red-crested penguin.
Yeah.
With a pack on his back of some kind.
Sure. But yeah, so she opens the shower, and there's just this penguin there.
And the penguin is
just like, yeah. So
he's just chill.
It's open for you now. Like,
yeah, he's like, oh, yeah, I was done.
Like any other roommate who was walking out of the shower while you're walking in.
He very much gives the, like, stoic roommate who, like, just got out of the
Who just doesn't talk.
Yeah, who just doesn't talk vibe.
But Shinji flips his shit.
Well, because he's already had a lot up to this point, and this is just, like, the straw that broke the camel's back.
Right.
Like...
Runs back into the, we'll charitably call it a dining room. Kitchen, I guess.
Well, this is how a lot of Japanese apartments are laid out.
Yeah. It is. It's how a lot of American apartments are laid out.
This is how my apartment in Grand Rapids was laid out.
Right. It's actually quite a large apartment by modern standards.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah,
like the fact that the bathroom is down a hall and not just a door in this room.
Yeah.
Right. But anyway, freaks out and Katsuragi's just like, oh yeah, it's Pimpin. Like, he lives here. Meanwhile, Pimpin, like, walks past him and just goes up to, like, the fridge and pushes a button and opens it and grabs, like, a beer or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And leaves.
Yeah, he's like that one roommate.
Again, he lives here, right? He's not a pet.
Yeah.
He's the other roommate.
Yeah, and notably, we see that
we also see it slightly before they rock, paper, scissors for who has to do chores.
Mm-hmm.
Which is...
And at first, you're like, why is there a chore chart? And we can only assume that the reason...
We can only assume that the chore chart previously, Pimpin had been doing.
Yeah. And I just... because notably, her apartment's disheveled, but it's not, like, as bad as it could be.
No, not nearly.
It's clear that someone has been doing some amount of...
Well, like, the fridge is clean, right? Mm-hmm. But the beer is kept remarkably clean.
Which I can only assume means that Pen Pen's been doing this.
Right, correct.
And I just have this marvelous image of, like, his flippers around, like, a small broom.
Yeah, honestly.
And, like, he like dusts the fridge.
Yeah, 100% he does the cleaning. Anyway, but yeah,
he's wearing an apron as he, like, puts a microwave meal in the microwave for Katsuragi.
Specifically, like, knows when she's gonna get home and times it perfectly.
Yeah.
Right.
And then cracks a beer for himself.
Pimpin the butler penguin.
Dude, if I could have a butler penguin,
I would have a butler penguin.
Fuck yeah, I'd have a butler penguin.
Alfred, but he's a penguin.
Mm-hmm.
We have to assume that Pimpin is also, like, trained by the SAS.
Yeah.
I mean, given this show, the idea that Pimpin is also some sort of bodyguard is not out of the question.
Yeah, it's not completely out of the question. Anyhow, that all happens.
Yeah, it sure does happen.
Then we go to Gendo Gendoing.
Yup, Gendo Gendoing while he Gendos the Gendo.
That's literally, I mean, he just says a bunch of cryptic shit.
Yeah, sure does.
And says, like, stuff like, oh, Ray will be ready to work again in 20 days. Well,
specifically the doctor is like, oh, you went to the hospital and saw Ray. Like, how is she?
She'll be ready to work.
And he, like, pauses for a bit. Yeah. And is then, like, she will be ready for work in 7 months.
Mm-hmm. 7 months, yeah.
And Eva 00 will be ready in the same amount of time.
And that's when we cut to seeing and notably, they're in a control booth similar to the one that in the bay that Eva 01 was in. But this one, the windows are blown out.
The windows are blown out, and it's dark.
It is dark, and there's, like, shit strewn everywhere.
Yeah.
And then we cut to the actual
Pimpin hasn't been in to clean up yet.
Yeah. And we go into the actual bay. Yeah, Pen's actually the janitor for Nerve.
Yeah, one preserves.
He's maintenance.
Pimpin's security clearance is probably higher than everyone else's.
Yeah. Pen is the only one.
Because crucially, he can't talk. You torture him all day.
Yeah, well, look, Pen is the only one that Gendo truly trusts.
That's fair. Yeah, Pen is the only person Gendo loves. He loves Pimpin like a son. Well, no, not like a son, because he hates his son. Like a different offspring that he doesn't hate.
Yeah, and we see 00.
Yeah.
And there's this thrashed, like, gantry everywhere.
Yeah.
And notably, the gantry is less elaborate than 0-1s, which we assume must mean that 0-1, the reason there was so many more, there were more
extra gantry, yeah.
Because we'll see why in a second.
Sure will.
Because for some reason, 00's fist is through the wall of the bay.
Yeah, it is.
And it's also severely damaged.
Yep.
And then we cut to Shinji brooding.
Yep, he's brooding. He's listening to music. There's a shot of like some paperwork for like a transfer.
Yeah, and then we see Misato attempting to parent.
Yeah.
Which is parent the child, Misato, or else Gendo will have to do it.
Parent the child, Misato, or Gendo will have to do it again.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because she gets on the phone to the doctor
and
is like, this sucks. And the doctor's like, it's your fucking job.
Yeah.
Like,
this is what we have. This is
literally your job. Do it. Like,
yeah, parent the child, Mitsuko.
Yeah.
Or else Gendo will have to do it again.
Like,
and then she attempts to parent him.
Doesn't go well.
Yeah, he doesn't respond. Then he kind of rolls onto his back because he's turned away from the door when she comes in.
Yeah.
Or opens the door. She doesn't really enter the room.
Yeah.
And she tells him, like, you did a good job today.
Yeah, she does. She's
like you did a good thing.
You did good. Get some rest.
And then he rolls onto his back.
Because I think part of it is also nobody realizes how traumatized he's been from this.
Yeah.
Right. They're just like, yeah, he did soldier stuff. He did good. It's fine.
Yeah, and clearly a good job kid is what he needs right now.
Right.
It's all he needs right now.
Yeah.
And not, a shrink.
Yeah, or to be held by the loving arms of a father.
Or that. And then he rolls onto his back, and it fades in, ever so slowly, the repetitive thumping sound. And at first you're like, is that the soundtrack? Or there's no soundtrack for this.
Nope.
And then we cut back to the battle where it penetrates the skull.
Yeah.
And they're like, get him out of there and blah, blah, blah. Or like, we
have to evacuate the pilot.
And they're also saying like all this shit's broken. Like we've lost signal to blah blah blah. Like we need to recover it now.
Right. We literally cannot send the abort signal. Right. Like it's broke.
Well, and the tech who's in charge of that literally like yells it back of like, dude, the signal's cut. I can't.
Yeah.
And and then they're like, well, then we need to eject Shinji. We need to get him out of there.
Right. I can't send that signal either.
Like, I can't. The signals are cut.
Right.
And they're all panicking and freaking out. And then someone's like, holy shit.
Yeah, it starts, like, moving.
Yeah, and they're like, the ratings are going off the charts. It's going berserk. And you're like, wait, what do you mean it's going berserk? What do you mean
it's going berserk?
And then its arm regenerates.
Well, specifically because they don't seem to be super aware of the berserk thing, but it's Gendo's second in command.
Oh yeah,
who is like, there we go.
Yeah,
like that's what we were waiting for.
Yeah,
right. And even Gendo gets like a little like.
He gives it all according to Keikaku nod.
Yeah. It's very, very,
and
like we knew this would happen.
Yeah.
This was the plan. This was the plan the whole time.
This is why all we needed
was
for him.
We didn't tell anyone this was the plan, but this was the plan.
Yeah. This is what we wanted to happen. Yeah. This is what we expected and wanted to happen.
But also at the same time, it is very, hey, Gendo, why does your piece of advanced military equipment have a berserk mode?
It's like and notably I think the music kind of kicks in here a little bit. I don't remember, or maybe it doesn't have any music at all. There's not a lot of soundtrack to this show.
No, there's not, because they couldn't afford any.
Correct, but it almost works for it.
It works fine.
But what's deeply unsettling is so this thing lets go of it once it does that because it thinks it's dead, or no, it blasts it.
It turns on its AT field.
Right. Yeah.
The first thing it does when it goes berserk is turn on its AT field, which repulses the angel.
And then its arm regenerates.
Yeah, its arm regenerates, which is something nobody thought would happen.
They're like, whoa,
it's a machine.
Someone, like one of the texts is like, the arm just regenerated, and everyone looks like,
What?
What the fuck?
Again, this is very my Abrams tank just regrew a tread.
My gun barrel was blown away, and now it has regenerated. That's not the turret. The turret on my T-55 tank that just got tossed has now regenerated.
Yeah, has regenerated.
And the tank is now operating autonomously and is aggressively attacking the enemy.
And it gets worse.
Oh, yeah.
Because the enemy then deploys its anti-everything shield.
Mm-hmm.
Which we all know is an anti-everything shield. Nothing can penetrate it.
And then the Ava
sticks its hands in and pulls the shield apart. Which we get a bit of jargon for.
Mm-hmm.
The only jargon I will go over is the jargon concerning AT fields, because it actually matters to the show.
Yeah.
Is they say that it's like synchronizing its AT field with the Angel's AT field so that it can like cause destructive feedback.
Yeah. Well, it's nullifying it.
It's nullifying, yeah. They are matching shield harmonics.
Yeah, basically, yeah. They don't say it like that, but they're basically saying it's matching shield harmonics to nullify its AT field.
And then they say it went through the AT field like paper, which, or like it was nothing, which, incorrect, it took a bit.
I guess compared to their efforts to get through the AT
well, because their efforts are, it's impenetrable.
And then it proceeds to rip this thing apart.
Yeah, absolutely destroys it. Wins, it's not even close.
Well, is winning, it's not even close. And then in a last-ditch effort, the Angel wraps itself around the upper half of the Ava's body and detonates.
Correct. And this is because you note that the damage we saw to the Ava when they were recovering it was not a hole through the cockpit and a missing arm.
Yeah.
It's this damage.
Yeah, where it's in pieces.
Yeah.
But the head notably doesn't have a hole through it.
Correct. Correct.
That is a hint.
That's a hint that we don't actually know what happened.
And notably, Shinji doesn't really know. He only gets flashes of it.
Correct.
Because how we fade into the scene is really cool. Yeah. Because it starts with the thumping, and we see flash of like something behind Shinji, like almost interposed over him a little bit, and then thump, thump, and then flash again.
Yeah.
Thump, thump, flash again.
Right, like, until we just roll into the scene.
Yeah, until we just roll into the scene.
And then notably, the scene exits on a giant eyeball coming out of a giant vagina and staring at him. I'm sure that's not important.
That's also part of the head of Ava 1.
Yeah, he is staring at the head of Ava 1 that is kind of like across from him now because it's been blown apart.
The top half of the head, instead of being the normal top half of the head, is this like blob of flesh at first with teeth on the bottom, where it's like where it's the upper jaw.
And then it like this giant vagina forms, and then an eyeball comes out of it and stares at him.
Well, and notably because it's not shaped like a normal eye. The slit opens up and then it like appears like a vagina.
Yeah. And again, we're mentioning that it looks vagina-like. It's not a joke. It's important to the show.
And also, it's the first thing you think of when you see this thing appear, because the eye,
they are not subtle.
The eye appears last, and it's also unsettling because it like it
is birthed from the.
It like pops in and spins around real quick, and then its eye locks onto Shinji, and that's when Shinji screams.
Right, and that's when the flashback. And the other thing that happens is we briefly hear the people in the control center. They're like, "Oh, we've got the signal back. Like everything's working again. It's fun. Fine."
And it's like,
which is important because it means that all of that signal loss was not from the damage that the Angel caused. It's because Eva 01 shut it off intentionally. Right, which I guess you could also interpret it as it regrew the bits that caused the signal, and that the Angel did cause that damage, but I don't think that's the correct interpretation. I think the correct interpretation is it intentionally shut off the signal.
Yeah, so that it couldn't be stopped.
Like, that's always been my read on that.
That's been my read as well.
Yeah.
Which is disturbing for a number of reasons.
Yeah, it's supposed to be.
Correct. That's
again, Gendo Ikari. Why does your piece of advanced military equipment have a berserk mode?
Again, Gendo Ikari. Why does your piece of military equipment operate less like a piece of military equipment and more like
a caged animal,
more like an eldritch being?
That too. But also the thing is, if I was Gendo,
Mhm.
it would be pretty easy to spin this as, well, it's a last-ditch defense mechanism.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
In the event of pilot incapacitation.
Yeah, when the pilot's vital signs drop below a certain threshold, the machine
goes nuts.
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't that like wipe out a city?
Yeah, but we're fighting in the ruins of a city above the city we're currently in anyway.
Right. If what you're fighting is a giant kaiju, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
Now, if you were to say, deploy this against the military, that might be a little bit of a problem.
But our units.
Why would we do that? We're fighting kaijus.
Yeah.
I don't see a problem there.
Yeah, I don't see anything.
Yeah, it basically has segment mode.
It does. Yeah, it's just segment.
It's just segment.
Yeah, it's
a segment in HP. If for anyone who's played Lancer, it's a segment in HP.
Yeah,
they're totally safe. IPSN sells them now.
Yeah,
presumably from Gendo Akari's research.
Well, they are the ones who did the thing at the end of the series.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah,
I'm sure that or rather whatever. Anyway, yeah. So that's it for episodes 1 and 2 of our new series on Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to continue on with the series.
Absolutely.
It's going to be great. Be on the lookout for future episodes. Until then, peace.
See ya.